Hello, everyone. Welcome to EUROSTUDENT Talks webinar. My name is Marlene, and I'm once again hosting the EUROSTUDENT Talks webinar today. Please be reminded, as also Zoom said, that the event will be recorded, and if someone wants to join in with comments or questions, then this is absolutely welcome. And you can also post them in the chat if you don't want to speak when your microphone or like join in with a video. And as you know, this will be the last webinar of this year. And we will make it a bit special in that sense that in EUROSTUDENT Talk series, we haven't had a discussion format webinar before. We have had like one or two speakers, but today we will have 4 members of student unions from different countries. So it will be a fruitful discussion, hopefully. And I'm very happy that we have here so many people from different countries. First of all, I'm happy to welcome Tamara Ciobanu from National Alliance of Student Organizations in Romania.
Hi, hello, thank you for the invitation. I'm happy to be here with you.
Yes, happy to have you. Then we have here Jakob Blasius from National Union of Students in Denmark. Hello to Jakob as well. Thirdly, I'm happy to welcome Damir Solak from Student Chamber of the Council of Higher Education Institutions in Czech Republic.
Hello, and thanks for having us.
Hello, Damir. And last but not least, we have here Ángel Canal from Spain, from Public University Students Union.
Thank you for the invitation.
Yes, very nice to meet you, Ángel. So these are our speakers today. And before we move on to our discussion, actually we have a little warm-up question as well. And as you know, the season is Christmas season, holiday season, and because of that, I have a kind of Christmas special question to all our speakers. That could you describe one Christmas tradition that is specific to your country? I think it will be very interesting to hear.
Yes, I think I can start. Hi. So in Romania, usually, I don't know if that's like a general tradition, but in Romania, lots of children go from door to door and sing carols in order to receive money or oranges or pretzels from the people. But also we have plenty of teenagers that disguise themselves in goats or bears or different animals and sing some traditional songs. That's usually a tradition from the villages, and they also sing different traditional songs to get money from the people. Yeah, that's our tradition.
Very interesting. We have something like this in Estonia, but not during Christmas, but we have similar holidays like this American Halloween, you know, that children are going from door to door and then singing or making some tricks or something and then asking for sweets. So it's a kind of similar, but not for Christmas. Thank you very much, Tamara. Who could be the next one?
Okay, so I can go second. So in the Czech Republic, we have all those, of course, traditional things like Christmas tree, giving presents, but we have also golden pig tradition. That means that on the 24th of December, you shouldn't eat much during the day. You should have some fasting, so not eating until the Christmas Eve and the dinner. And it is said that if you don't eat the whole day, you will see the golden pig on the sky. It'll appear, and if you see that golden pig, it will bring you luck and money in the upcoming year. However, I'm hungry during the day, so I didn't manage to see the golden pig at all.
Okay, sounds really like something that everyone could try this year on the 24th to bring some luck to next year. Thank you, Damir. We can move on either to Denmark or to Spain.
Well, I can be third then. I think one thing in Denmark is like that children will have a small calendar with small gifts for each day before Christmas. So it's like a little small gift that each child will get, and then on the then they get like sometimes bigger and bigger. And we also have this little thing I brought with the candle lights with the different dates on it, and then you burn it down each day when you get closer to Christmas. So that's traditions in Denmark.
This candle is very cool indeed. Like you can step by step come closer to Christmas. Yes, but Spain is the last country then.
Yep. Well, we have a tradition that is called the King's Cake. It's a round cake with a hole inside, like a big donut, with candied fruits, figs, and a lot of sugar. And it's eaten every morning in the breakfast during the holidays. And there is a bean hidden inside the cake, and the one who finds the bean is the one supposed to pay for the whole cake. And it's usually also because for the children, that usually also they hid a small toy inside the cake for them, the bean for the adults to pay, and a small toy for the children.
Very interesting. I was just wondering how this King's Cake will go together with the tradition of Czech Republic that you have to fast on the 24th. So no golden pigs for Spanish people who are eating King's Cake probably. But thank you all. It has been very interesting. Before I will start with my questions to our speakers, I would actually like to launch a poll that our listeners could also answer, and it's about the worries that you came across in 2021. So the question is that what has been the biggest worry for students this year, in your opinion? As we have people from different countries participating here, it's definitely interesting to see how the results will come. As soon as most of the people have answered, I will share the results as well. And of course, our speakers can answer as well. So maybe some last seconds to do it. Yes, I think I will end it, and then you can see the results as well. So here they are. I think it's quite interesting to see that people think that the biggest worry has been with problems in social life. Probably it will be, it is like that because of the pandemics going around and so many restrictions that we have, but it's interesting. And it's also interesting that some people said that it's something else, not those choices that were brought out here. But I think that from these results, we can easily move on to the discussion. And actually, I would like to ask our speakers that what have been the main challenges that students have been facing in your country in last years? It can be also only 2021, but also a trend, like when looking back 1 or 2 years or so. The main challenges. I don't know who wants to start. Maybe.
I will start again.
Okay,
to maintain the rhythm. Yeah, so basically, in the context of this pandemic, obviously the education system has been challenged to adapt in a short time to online teaching. We as a students' union considered that the academic component has been the most affected, and that's why we decided to also launch a questionnaire. Two questionnaires actually in the beginning of 2020 for the students and for the teachers. And a lot of academic issues and problems have been, let's say, discovered. And I will just cover a part of them. The most frequently reported problems are concerning the attitude of teachers, the relationship with students, the availability to questions and consults. Usually the digital skills. The digital skills have been a big problem in Romania, not only for students, but also in a bigger part for teachers. Another main problem reported was that there was a lack of interaction with teachers and with academic staff generally, and that was a big problem. Also, I would add that the pedagogical activities were replaced by various assignments. That was pretty bad from our point of view, because the assignments were unclear or without necessary resources, without necessary knowledge that couldn't cover the teaching activities. In the beginning of the pandemic, in Romania, the universities took like at least a couple of weeks to adapt. And those weeks were basically lost because the curricula wasn't ready for the online environment. And as a consequence, students received assignments very late and with a very short deadline. Also regarding the housing, that was a big problem for us in Romania, because the students were sent home. A lot of them were working. It was a tough moment. And finally, I think that the problem that let's say impacted us most was that a lot of universities weren't ready for real-time interaction. So that's why in the beginning, a lot of them weren't using video conferences or I don't know, video materials. So students were just receiving study resources and assignments. And I think that was a big problem for us and for the higher education system in Romania.
So
and those are just part of of the main difficulties encountered by students.
But mostly those are the challenges and problems that came up mostly with the pandemics.
Yes.
Yes, but is there something that existed also before and has been like a challenge or a problem like throughout the, I don't know, last years? If we don't count in the pandemics, I mean.
Yeah, from our point of view, I think all that is related to digitalization was a problem also before, but it somehow exploded in the moment that the pandemic started. And I think that was a big, I don't know, a big scream from the students to do finally something in this direction, because there's no way out. So yeah, I think that was our main problem, all regarding to digitalization.
Hopefully, in that sense, pandemics has also shown how big the problem is, and maybe they will somehow solve it quicker now. Thank you very much, Tamara. Anyone else?
Yeah, I think I can go. I think I was thinking about two things, and one relates to the pandemic, and it's also the whole digital transformation during the pandemic, because I think we realized just how huge the digital inequalities are among different groups of students. Like I remember just when we are going to okay, now there's a lockdown, everyone is doing digital learning. I was like, okay, sure, I'll turn on my camera at home, and then when other people had the experience that like, I don't want to show where I live, I don't want to I'm trying to like move beyond what I'm coming from, or I'm sharing a bedroom with my siblings, or I wear a headscarf when I'm out, but not at home. So like, there's a lot of things where this whole digital classroom creates new challenges for different groups of students. And I think that's one thing that the pandemic really taught us, and something that we should really be aware of when we talk about the possibilities and opportunities that are with digital learning in the future, because I see it as something that's becoming more and more present also beyond the pandemic. So the pandemic made sure that like now everyone was focused on it and like really started to think about, okay, how is this done well? So I think that was really the big challenge, and the uncertainty. Like, are we going there in person, or are we doing a whole semester digitally? That can be so stressful for a lot of people. I think the second point is more of a trend that we have experienced in Denmark, with the way that we talk about education, where like there has grown this discourse about education's benefit for the job market, for the rest of society, where people say, okay, what value does this education, this program give to the job market? Are we just like giving people education so they can go out and be unemployed? And that's the whole kind of like conversation. And it's really gone from talking about education as something that has a value in of itself, to education as a means to helping the job market. And I think it's really interesting to see this shift, because it creates some opportunities for us to talk about a closer relationship between education and the rest of society, especially higher education, who sometimes can feel divorced from the rest of the world, at least like because you're thinking like theories and it becomes very abstract. But it also has the shortcomings that we can become so focused on the direct applicability of each thing that we learn, that we forget like some of the ambitions that we have with especially universities. And I think that is a trend that I'm a bit worried about in the long run.
Yes, thank you very much. I think I will come back to this bigger trans questions a bit later as well, but definitely very, very interesting insight to Denmark. So maybe some thoughts from Czech Republic or Spain?
Yes, so my colleagues were talking about digitalization a lot in the times of pandemic, and I totally agree with them. And I'd like to add something more from the point of an individual student, because during those 2 years we had to challenge with often with lack of motivation and even mental health problems, because many students, they just enrolled the university, started their first year and never met anyone in person. They didn't manage to have new contacts, new friends, and it was really difficult for them when you just open the laptop and you see your colleagues on the screen and you can't meet them in person. Of course, there are some study programs that cannot transfer everything into online mode. For example, natural sciences, for the practical part, you just simply need to go to the lab. also in the Czech Republic, we generally have to speak more about the social dimension of the higher education, because the income of your parents often determines the level of the education you reach. And I think it shouldn't be like that. The country should provide some complex system to help students from low income families to achieve higher education as well.
Yes, indeed. I was just thinking about this social side of or social life side of getting a higher education, that's about social integration and also academic integration, that it's not only about getting the knowledge, but it's about networking, making friends and everything. So this has definitely been very difficult during the pandemics. But then Spain, Angel, what can you add?
Yep. Well, from our side, there have been two main problems, and both of them, in fact, existed before the pandemic, but the pandemic exaggerated them. The first is in the digitalization part. When the pandemic started and we changed to an online setup, it was not only the different barriers that the students had regarding the materials and hardware, having webcams or having mics to be able to participate in class, but also the teaching methods that the professors and the teachers at the university were used to apply and were have been applying for 30 years or 20 years. At that moment it couldn't work anymore, because you couldn't have a 2 hours lecture online, because no one is able to focus on a 2 hours online lecture. And most of the professors at the university didn't have the methodologies and the knowledge to find an alternative way of teaching. So for the students, it be really hard to keep with the classes and to keep with the teaching at the university, because we have changed to a digital setting, but none of the methods have changed. So that's one of the biggest challenge. And the other is in the decision or the representativity of the students. Many decisions have been being made on a day-to-day basis in the governing bodies, and because usually in Spain the students don't tend to engage a lot in the governing bodies, a lot of decisions has been made without any student present to be able to say, okay, this is harmful for our rights, or we cannot cope with this, and a lot of decisions has harmed the students' right because there wasn't any student there to defend those rights. So I think those have been the main challenge that we have faced during the pandemic.
Yes, also very interesting that.
Can I also add something?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I think also a problem that has been existing everywhere, is still present, is regarding the psychological pressure and the mental health. And it's really important, I think, to underline it again, the necessity of psychological counseling services, and the fact that we realized in the pandemic that students had limited access to them. So I think all regarding to mental health was again a problem for students, and it's really important to add that up to the list.
Yes, indeed. I think that it has been everywhere like this, that all the problems, even tiny ones that existed before the pandemics, actually have increased after the pandemics and during that, because it's like shedding some light on the weaker points in the system, and in that sense it's getting like more difficult. But to move on, actually one of my questions would have been about some broader changes and trends in the whole higher education system. And actually, we have already touched some of the topics like digitalization, but also Jakob mentioned marketization, commodification. Is there anything else like broader trends that you would like to mention when you're thinking about the future perspectives of higher education systems?
I think one thing that we are talking a lot about, which is kind of contradictory in a sense, is that there's an increased level of internationalization and at the same time an increased focus on national matters. So we can just see in the education debate in Denmark that it's very much focused about like Denmark and like Danish education and how can this help Denmark and Denmark. And at the same time, there's all these processes that's going on, which is about making education more international and like collaborating and working with each other and really like just finding solutions together. So I think that trend that is kind of contradictory is really interesting.
But do you have any assumptions? Why is it like that these contradictory trends are like emerging?
I think that, well, I think it's because one thing is the increased internationalization is something that's primarily happening within the education sector, and the increased focus on domestic issues is happening around the education sector. So the current political conversations in parliament and in the ministries is about what's happening domestically. But what's happening inside the higher education world is an increased focus and interest in the wider world.
Of course, yes. So it's like a controversy about the national political issues and then the general trends, like global trends in higher education systems. But you also mentioned before this marketization or commodification, that it's all about how different study programs prepare our students for certain jobs. And I think that one trend that is coming with this marketization in higher education is also micro-credentials, at least in some countries. You can all comment, how is it in your country? Is it a topic? Is it like becoming more popular, or it's rather something that is not talked about at the moment yet?
Well, for example, in Spain, we are facing a total change in the higher education system because the ministry decided to shift all the laws and all the royal decrees that relate to the higher education system. And in fact, one of the changes is speaking for the first time at the political level in Spain about the micro-credentials. And in fact, here the concern is not in the part of the marketization of those micro-credentials, but on the quality assurance of those micro-credentials, because most universities want to leave the micro-credentials outside the quality assurance system because it's easier for them and it allows them to create a lot of different courses and micro-credentials. So in fact, it's starting to be a topic now. It's starting to be a topic. It wasn't until July. So it's starting to be a thing, but we have mainly other big topics to discuss because we are even redefining what is to be legally called a university here in Spain. So usually micro-credentials or those topics that are really a trend situation in Europe, here in Spain, that are being left to a second place because, well, the ministry is debating this more central to the system.
Okay, so you have like bigger changes going on, or like bigger discussions. Can you maybe open it with some sentences? Like what is the discussion about what is in university and what is not? It's actually interesting.
Yeah, of course. Well, here in Spain, we have a problem. It's not a problem. It's a situation that we are starting to have more private universities than public universities. And most of the private universities, they offer master's degrees, a lot of master's degrees, usually in the economic areas and law, economics and law, and 1 or 2 bachelor degrees, usually law, economics, philosophy, 2 or 3 bachelor degrees, but mostly master degrees and PhD programs. They don't have labs, they don't have research departments, they only focus on teaching master degrees. So the debate is whether that's a university that is supposed not only to teach master degrees, but to teach bachelor degrees, master degrees, and PhDs. And also a university is supposed to create knowledge, to research, and to transfer that knowledge to the society. So yeah, there was a new law regarding the criteria to be considered a university. And for example, right now with a new law, to be a university, you have to have at least 5 bachelor degrees from the 5 main knowledge areas, that from biological science or health science, engineering, economics. So from at least 1 bachelor from each of that, and the majority of your students should be bachelor students. You cannot have most of your students for master degrees, for example, is one of the changes that we are facing. And in fact, almost any university in Spain, even the public universities, can pass the criteria, because also you are supposed to have most of your professors to be in the tenure track, and the public universities, most of the teachers and professors are not in the tenure track. They have contracts that are renewed every 5 years. So even the public universities are not filling those criteria, but they have 6 years to fill them. After that, they will not be longer universities.
Okay, very interesting. We can't go deeper into this topic, but it is actually very intriguing then to see how the reform will work out and how it will change the whole system in Spain. Thank you very much. Anything else that someone would like to add about those bigger trends?
Well, I think in relation to micro-credentials, it's not something that's really talked about on a political level in Denmark. Like there's a conversation happening definitely at higher education institutions, but not on a political level. And I think when it comes to the more like broader trends, I think one thing that I wanted to mention also, which I think is quite interesting, is how the whole conversation about commercialization of education has really been a lot promoted a lot by like the liberal parties, like historically. But what we see now is also the social democrats and more socialist parties talking more about this, like, but what is the need in the society? What is the job that this comes to in the end? And I think that is an interesting trend that has just quite recently happened within the political discussion about higher education in Denmark. So it's kind of like a political shift. Like, of course, the liberal parties are still talking about like about the things they have talked about for a long time. But yeah, I'm a bit unsure about how it will turn out in the end, now that both sides of the political spectrum is kind of talking about this the same thing, but like using different words.
Yes, and it's actually like this debate is higher education a public good, like creating more aware citizens and so on, or it's more like just economic benefit? Yeah, it's indeed intriguing.
Yes, I would also mention firstly that in Romania there is no let's say serious discussion about micro-credentials. Of course, there are conferences and the topic is starting to make some waves, but nothing really serious at all. And regarding other trends, I think another trend that has recently appeared is the encouraging of the autonomy of students in exploring the discipline outside the classes by establishing individual responsibilities in the teaching process, encouraging them to determine the way they accumulate knowledge individually, providing students with support resources for self-control and time management and things like this. So I think another trend is also to encourage the autonomy of students to explore by themselves the curricula.
Yes, like more flexibility and more freedom. Okay, maybe just for a short break, I will launch a poll, because before we talked about also about mental health and all these problems that came up during the pandemics as well, and how students and like people in general didn't feel very well. And actually, it was one of my plans for another poll that I would like to know what helped people most when they were experiencing difficulties. Was it support from friends and family, or from higher education institution staff, just taking some time off? It will be interesting to see. I can already see the results, and I will soon share them until some people are still answering, but it actually connects nicely to Tamara's last words about support that higher education institutions can offer. I will share the results, and here they are. Actually, it shows in a very intriguing way how mostly people are getting support rather from family or just taking time off, but it's not the support of the institution that they think is helping the most. And I think it's interesting to see that, is it about the quality of support services or so on, we can just assume. But I think it's very intriguing to see. And from there on, actually, something I would like to discuss as well. Since we started, we have mostly been talking about the challenges and like looking back, but another part of this webinar would nicely be looking ahead and looking to the next year. So I would like to know, what are your expectations for 2022? What should higher education institutions do? What should be done by policymakers? But maybe also, what are you expecting from your fellow students? Like, should they be more active, like in advocacy or so on? So all the different fields, like, and different stakeholders. What should be done? And what are your expectations?
Last poll, maybe minimum students go.
Sorry, we can hear you a bit bad. Maybe it's about your questions. It's like you can.
Okay, is it better now?
Yes, it's better now.
So yeah, many students maybe do not know who to ask for an advice. So in the future, I think that higher education institutions should promote more their counseling services. For example, we had in the Czech Republic mobile app called Don't Panic that was designed by students from technical university from my city, and it went very popular, and students could find their advices and recommendations who to contact. I know that other universities are trying to change their websites and make special system where you just click on the problem you have, and then you get immediately a contact for a person for a specific issue. And regarding the future, well, I think that we have to accept that COVID won't disappear in several days. It will we'll have to face with this problem also in the next year, and we should definitely focus more on digital skills, and because they'll be crucial for the future. And in every study program, you should definitely learn about some digital skills in your area. For example, I'm a lawyer, so in a law program to learn about all those law information systems, how to work with them, and also the higher education institutions should provide hybrid education. For example, simply when you don't feel well that day, you are ill, you shouldn't be limited of not going to the faculty, but they can simply take a laptop and join you into the discussion of a seminar.
Yes, indeed. So more hybrid forms of teaching and learning. Yes, anything else? Any other expectations? What should universities do, or what should be done by policymakers?
I think one thing that I'm thinking about is how do we increase student participation in the co-creation of learning, and how do we make sure that student voices are heard more clearly? Over the last many years, higher education has grown increasingly complex. It has grown very professionalized. And then the question becomes, how can students and academic personnel take part in decision making and make universities democratic institutions when they are extremely complex? How do you fit reading your text for each class while also taking part in quality assurance conversations? And the thing is that right now it is the most privileged students, it's the students with the most resources who are allowed access to decision-making spaces, because they're the only ones that can do it and like simply have the time and energy to do it. So has also grown a recognition about the need for student voices in decision making, and that is immensely helpful for students. And it's, of course, it makes perfect sense that if you want to make a better education and you have mostly adults who are in it, like take them, like, of course you will do the development of education with them, but like there's this recognition of students being needed and important, but it's only a limited group of students who will have the access and opportunities to take part in it. So I think for the future, it's really important to focus on meaningful decision-making spaces for students. There's a lot of like committees and working groups that's all the time being set up where students can come in and join, and then there's this whole long process that might take many months before you see a result. So we have to think about how do we make these processes more simple and accessible, so we can actually include the people that it is all about. I think that is the big question we have to solve, because we cannot just cut out the teachers and the students in decision making at universities, because then we would have like some factories of learning, which is like not particularly good for an education institution.
Yes, indeed, it's about the challenge how to like remain this or keep this human touch in the system, even if it's more and more bureaucratic. Of course, any other thoughts and expectations that you would like to express?
Well,
Please go ahead,
Go ahead,
Angela Marie.
Okay, no, we started a SPED for the universities to make a move in the students engagement situation. We think that this is really important to allow the students to have a voice and to have also a vote, not only a vote. So we really expect for the next year for the universities to realize the situation, to realize that there is a problem in a lot of universities, that that there is not enough engagement from the students. We hope that the universities decide to do something about this, because we as National Union are trying to do everything we could, but we need the institutions to be the ones to help us and to be the ones to encourage the students to be part of the governance.
Yes, like more support from the system as well. But Tamara, you wanted already to...
Yes, well, everything has somehow already been said, but it's important to underline the fact that there have been already 2 years since the pandemic started. So it's time to really make things go. Yeah, and I believe that some, I don't know, institutional strategies to tackle these issues are really important in the higher education institutions, and they are still non-existent in Romania at least. And of course, they should be co-created with students. So there are several suggestions for improvement from my point of view. Most of them have already been mentioned by my colleagues, but I think it's important to understand that we should start doing this, because time is passing by, and 2 years are from our point of view just gone, let's say, and we should develop some important aspects on this area as soon as possible.
Yes, indeed. I hope that when there are like events like this, when we bring people together from different countries, maybe there will be some emerging context that will help also to learn from each other's experiences. But now I would also like to ask our listeners if they have any questions or comments, then please feel free to join and make comments or ask something that you have been wondering about. It's absolutely welcome. You can both post your questions or comments into the chat, or you can just join in. Anyone? It has been a very fruitful discussion.
May I say something?
Yes, of course.
Okay. Hello from Athens. I am Yannis Katsanevakis. As you probably know, I am here as a representative of BFUG. And I just wanted to compliment you on this wonderful opportunity to share ideas and best practices. I've been listening very carefully to what you say, all you young people of Europe. And personally, I think one of the main challenges ahead is the introduction of micro-credentials. We will be talking a lot about them in the forthcoming months. And I'm sure we are all looking forward to seeing how they will be integrated in our everyday lives in higher education. Thank you very much and keep up the good work.
Thank you, Yanis, for your kind words. Anyone else? Any comments, questions? It's a very, very good opportunity to ask students from different countries. Yes, there is one question in the chat, and it really well fits into this EUROSTUDENT project background as well as this EUROSTUDENT webinar. Elizabeth is asking, what kind of evidence or data about the social situation of students do you lack in your advocacy work? Is there anything?
From our point of view, I think a lot of students in Romania mentioned various barriers to accessing online education, including the lack of a device or the lack of a performant device, the lack of strong internet connection, the lack of necessary software, and so on. But we do not have a clear evidence of all the students that might need help. Some of them have been helped by the universities and by the Ministry of Education, but we are not sure that the problem have been solved. So I think that this type of barrier partially or even completely limits students' access to education and should be addressed as a matter of priority. So yeah, probably this kind of numbers we are lacking.
Yes, like mapping how many people have problems with access. Yes. Anything else? What others think? Is there anything that you would like to know and you would like to use in your advocacy work, but you don't have this data?
Well, usually from our side, we try to do a lot of work regarding the defense of the students' rights, but we don't have the numbers of how many students have been affected because, for example, a teacher didn't want to repeat an exam because they were ill, they couldn't attend to the exam, and the teacher decided not to repeat the exam. But the law established that they have the right to repeat the exam and all those things. We don't have the numbers of that. We have a lot of numbers about the social situations of the students because the ministry is in charge of that, and they prepare a lot of very good statistics. Hope they don't hear me, but they prepare a lot of good statistics. But we don't have any number on how many students have been affected for violations of the students' rights and how many students have been trying to fight or to put a fight with their university regarding any problem that they have inside. We don't have numbers on that, and for us it's a really big problem, because when we go to a meeting with the ministry or with any part of the government, we say, we think that this is a big problem. They always say, well, do you have numbers to back that this is big? It could be just an anecdote that happened in that university. That's the problem we have right now.
You know, like violating the students' rights and like serving this topic. Very intriguing indeed. Anything else someone would like to add? And if not about this, then also we have another question, that what surprised you the most in 2021? It could be the last round as well.
Surprise, that's always a difficult. No, I'm so sorry. But I think surprised. I think that I think something that I was not thinking about at the start of the year was this whole conversation about like what processes are happening within the EU and what processes are happening in Bologna more widely, and the whole relationship between the two. I think that's not something we talk some about it, but not a lot. That's like the EU is doing a lot on education, and now there will be a new strategy on higher education and all these kind of things. And there's other things happening in like the realm of the whole Bologna process and all that collaboration. And it's kind of, I was a bit surprised about like how fast we were going to talk about like EU specific things, and in opposition to things happening outside or wider than EU. I was quite surprised about that, and I was a bit surprised that we don't talk more about it now.
So we need another webinar as well about this topic. Indeed. Anything else that surprised you this year?
Well, from my point of view, we knew that this COVID pandemic won't be over at the beginning of year. However, since I'm a student of law, I expected somehow that the legislation regarding the measures would be higher quality in the second year of pandemic than in the first year. But sometimes for the students, especially international ones, the situation got more difficult. For example, I was on Erasmus in Croatia, and the restrictions of traveling back home, for example, during Easter, were so complex that was really difficult to travel back home. And then it was found out that it was against the constitution. And of course, we international students who spent some time abroad, we were there vaccinated, and my country for some couple of months didn't want to accept foreign vaccination, even though it was in the EU country, and it was with the vaccine that was adopted on the EU level. So my surprise and disappointment was this bureaucracy and a bit chaotical decision making.
Yes, thank you, Damir. I know that one of the speakers, Jakob, has to leave, so I can already say that very, very big thanks to Jakob that you participated. I think that we will anyway wrap up the discussion soon, but as you have to leave, then thanks to you already.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure. Thank you to everyone who participated. It was a great opportunity and a great event. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and maybe see you in the future as well. So, is there anything else that someone else would like to add to wrap up the whole discussion? Maybe something we haven't asked, but that you feel that you want to share? Some last thoughts? Now it's silence. Everyone wants to go and continue with other activities.
Well, yes, I think we can make some conclusions. There is a need to create and strengthen a high-quality digital education infrastructure for all involved, and to address all barriers to the use of digital technologies for students and teachers. Also, development of the organizational capacity of universities to support online and hybrid education is the key. And there is a need for acquisition, and not only for software and licenses for students and teachers, and integration of a lot of open educational resources. it's really important to improve the quality of digital educational practices, also to adapt the discipline context to digital online tools, and create a better e-learning environment as long as the pandemic will go on, because apparently it's decided to stay with us. So we gotta make our content more qualitative, let's say, and we see that there is a widening gap for disadvantaged students, which hasn't been addressed. So maybe there should be some measures regarding this aspect.
Thank you very much, Tamara, for expressing your concerns. Is there anything, like very last few sentences that someone would like to add? If not, then I think that we can wrap it up. And I'm really very, very thankful to all the speakers that you agreed to participate. I think it has been very fruitful and interesting discussion. And also many thanks to our listeners that you are here and you have been part of this. For all those who would like to rewatch or like also rewatch previous EUROSTUDENT webinars, then I encourage you to visit the EUROSTUDENT webpage, and you can see all the previous webinars there as well. And also, please be reminded that in January, like on the second half of January, we will have another new webinar, and you can stay tuned when you're following EUROSTUDENT Twitter, because this is usually the first channel that we are using for our communication. So thank you, everyone. It has been very nice to talk to you, and I hope that all your wishes for 2022 will come true, and everything you are expecting will be a reality one day. So thanks a lot, and maybe see you also somewhere in another discussion one day. Thanks, everyone.